Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. Hamali here, aka Ready to Glow, and I have a very special guest with me today.
What's up guys? It's Vikra again.
My fiance. So in today's video, we are doing something that was very highly requested. We are going to be telling you guys the story of how we told our parents about each other, about how I'm dating a non-Indian and he's dating a non-Sri Lankan.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, it was a very juicy story. Before we get into this video, I would just like to say, please do not forget to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe because we will be doing a lot more videos like this. So I'm just gonna give you guys a little bit of background about us in case you don't already know us, or you're new to this channel, or you just have no idea. So my parents are Indian, specifically Gujarati. They came from Gujarat to Canada back in like 1983-ish. And
my parents are Sri Lankan and they were forced to come here because of the civil war that was going on. So they came to Canada like mid to late 80s.
We want to give you guys a little background also on our parents and what they're like, so you guys have a better understanding of our story a little bit. To begin, my parents had an arranged marriage, so their view on love is a little bit different. I think it's more so you can learn to love someone rather than already being in love.
So my parents are not arranged. They were a love marriage, and my dad was a pretty ballsy dude back in the days, and he used to be on like this is a true story. So he used to do this radio program for like an hour, and he used to get like a fan letter, and that fan was actually my mom's older sister, so my aunt. And so the story goes that he went to go visit this fan, and he ran into my mom instead, and then, you know, a love at first sight, blah blah blah.
And then I think his dad also kind of struggled with like winning your mom over, like you're winning your mom's family over to like get married and stuff. But then they ended up making it happen.
Yeah, there's like all this
politics. So I mentioned my parents came here in about 1983-ish. So this entire time they were living in Gujarat, India, and everyone there is pretty much Gujarati. It's not very multicultural there. And then they came to Canada, and when they came here, they pretty much stayed within their community. So they would associate themselves with a lot of Gujarati people. We lived in Brampton, and Brampton has they don't have a lot of Gujarati people, but they have a lot of Punjabi people, so it was still very Indian. And we just grew up around a lot of Indian people. My parents never really assimilated outside of that culture.
Their neighborhood is basically like Little India.
It was Little India. Like if you don't know what Brampton is, it literally is Little India. So I mean, they did go to work, and they had co-workers that weren't Indian, but they always managed to just like find a co-worker that was Indian or Gujarati or something along those lines and kind of just stuck with them. And then same goes for like whoever they hung out with after work, or like always just sticking with family. So yeah, they were very not assimilated into the Western culture, and they just kind of stuck with their roots.
So my parents, you know, kind of were forced to come to Canada seeking, you know, better job opportunities, and refuge. And my dad didn't really have much to his name in terms of like any money or anything like that. So when he came here, you know, he just hustled. Like any of us who have an excuse growing up here, like, you know, don't even go there, because like how my dad describes his upbringing here was crazy. He had like 3-4 jobs, like dishwasher.
Like my dad too. Like dude, I think he had like 2 or 3 jobs.
He worked at like 2 gas stations, and he was like a dishwasher at another store, or something insane. Yeah. Anyways, so he worked really hard, and he started a business, and the business was within our community. So a lot of his interactions growing up in Toronto was with a lot of people. A lot of Tamil people was always within this community. So he didn't assimilate as well, similar to how Amali's parents is, But yeah.
I think your parents more so didn't assimilate. Like at least my parents went to work, and so they were like around different cultures because they were working under someone. Because his dad didn't work under someone and just like worked for himself. And the business he was doing, he was like running a Tamil radio station. So everyone he was kind of around, all his like coworkers, like all the people he associated with,
all the different businesses that he connected with were all Tamil. And so my mom also was a stay-at-home mom too, so she never had the opportunity to meet with people that are
she was like very heavily helping with the business. So she
not just helping with the business, but my mom more than anything raised me and my brother more so than anything. So she didn't assimilate at all to Canada, so she was bringing us up under like the mentality of back home in Sri Lanka, and a lot of that was just driven by fear because you just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like you come to a foreign country and it's all so new, like you don't really know the language, you don't really know the people, you don't really know the culture, so you kind of stay in your like safety zone, and you don't it's hard to like I wouldn't even know the feeling of like trying to start a new life in a place that's so foreign to me.
You don't know the language.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing,
and I can understand their fear and their not wanting to assimilate into the culture, because it's a very big change and a very hard change, especially if you already don't know so much of it and you've been living in such a small bubble all your life.
And all you do hear about it is what you see in the news, and the news usually has like a lot of bad stuff that's going on in the neighborhood or in the cities, so you get very, very fearful.
And also like the fact that you don't really have money when you come here, so you can't really start to experience life the way you would, because at that point you come here and you're just trying to survive. Like you're just trying to make it, you're just trying to make some money. And so the years where you can really enjoy, or like I guess the people in the Western culture just enjoy themselves, they weren't able to do that because they were just trying to survive and make it out here and create a name for themselves. So they were just so busy working that they didn't really get to experience life the way we were blessed with.
Yeah, we got the luxury of figuring out who we are as people and figuring out what career and passions we have in life. And when my parents came here, they didn't have that option. It was just literally just survival.
And for us, it was really just about doing what we wanted and what made us happy, and like, you know, just being given all the tools we need to succeed already, whereas they had nothing and they had to build those tools for themselves and for us. So now that you guys have a better understanding of kind of where our parents came from and their struggles and their story a little bit, we thought it was really important for you guys to know that, because we don't want this video to come off as like we're bashing our parents in any ways. I think they did a really, really good job of raising us and giving us everything that we needed. I just, again, think that there's such a big generational gap and like an immigration gap and like a cultural gap, and we just were brought up in such different ways. So we kind of wanted to explain that our parents aren't bad people, they just grew up very differently from us. So with all that being said, we're gonna get into our stories of how we told our parents, and then after that we're gonna talk about their concerns about us telling them about each other. So I'm gonna let Vikra kind of go into his story first.
You know, I grew up in Toronto, so it's very, very multicultural, and the area I grew up was not my ethnicity per se. It was like a mix of a lot of different cultures, so I just kind of knew that, you know, there's a big chance that I probably would marry someone who's out of my culture. And so I knew that for a long time going in, and I already knew that like my parents are going to fight against this and all that stuff. So I was already like training my brain at a very early age.
Like what, high school?
You know, even before that, middle school, like I already knew like this is a potential. Not to say that that's what I was going for. Yeah, 100%. I already knew like back then, like
this guy was getting girls at a young age. I was not getting anybody. I wasn't even thinking that shit because I wasn't even getting boys at that age.
I was like, okay, this is a battle I know I'm gonna have with my parents, but it is not something I'm willing to give even like an inch on, because it's like my life and it's, you know, the person you're gonna live with for the rest of your life. So anyways, when I knew like, hey, Hamali is the person that I wanted to share my life with or whatever, I was nervous in the sense that like my parents are like pretty walled off, or like didn't have a lot of conversations with me about like dating girls or anything. I don't know. I think that's normal.
I think there's a lot of brown families.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think
like
that's normal for a lot of
relationship.
brown guys. Like that's just not a. You don't have girlfriends, or you don't talk about having girlfriends with your parents
Until like you found the one, and then they magically appear.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is. It's very strange, but
I think sorry not to cut you off, but like I think sometimes what happens in brown parents like minds is that it's like you must focus on school and like only school, and then as soon as you're done school, like now you need to find a wife, or now you need to get married, or now you need to find a husband, and it's like, where is this dude or girl just like magically gonna appear from? But like during school, like while you're in it, you shouldn't be dating, like you shouldn't be focused on that
the one side of all these steps that you need to do in sequence according to them, and then it's the I don't know, like the concept of dating is not something I don't think they understand. It's like if I am dating someone, they automatically assume that's it. I don't even think they understand what dating even is. It's just like, oh, if you like someone and they like you, automatically you're going to be with that person for the rest of
forever.
I don't know. Anyways, so in my head I was like, okay, they don't understand this is gonna be a really difficult conversation. So when I meet the right person, that's when I'll bring it up to them. So I was like really nervous because like this is kind of a really awkward conversation because I've never really had this conversation. Hamali was just like, okay, we need to tell them, and I was like, sure, we do. So we like picked a time or like a month, and we're like, okay, this is the month we're gonna tell our parents. And we're just gonna get it over with. It's like ripping off a band-aid.
Yeah, it was so bad.
Yeah, it was brutal, and I was just like, I was like dreading it. I was just like, I can't wait to get this over with. I just want to live in peace as long as I can before I get to tell them. That's literally all it was. Okay, so anyways, I picked the day, and I was like, okay, this is the day I'm gonna tell them. And that was a day that me and my parents, like every month, we'll do like a Costco run or whatever. So I'm like, okay, I'll figure to tell them at some point when we go out, and I'm like, hey, I'll do it in public because they can't
like hit you.
They can't like go nuts. So I'm like, hey, if I do it in public, you know, it's just an easier way for me to get it in. That was my strategy. So we were like shopping around in Costco, and I just was really difficult for whatever reason for me to gain the courage to tell them. I just found it extremely awkward. It wasn't like
like cringy.
Yeah, cringy. It wasn't like I was scared of how they react. 'Cause like I said, I was already decided in my head, like this is what, like whoever I choose is whoever I'm gonna be with. So it was more, cringy.
It's just like one of those like, I can't believe I have to like put these words out of my mouth like I like a boy.
I don't know why, So like, I don't know. I found it really awkward, and I couldn't get it out of me to do it on that Costco. So anyways, we left, and then I suggested we go out to have lunch, and I was like, okay, look, we'll go out for lunch, and I'll just tell them there. So we ended up going for lunch, and we were just deciding what we were going to eat, and then something just came over me, and then I just kind of blurted it out, and I was just like, hey, look, getting older now, and I gotta start making decisions around my life. And then my dad was like, yeah, you gotta find someone. And I was like, ding, perfect segue for me to go in. And I was like, thank God he said that. And I was like, yeah, I have. And then I thought they would like look at me right away and be like, huh? But they were just kind of like still looking down, and I booked them look at each other, and like in their head they're like, oh, here it comes. Like that's the feeling I was getting. And I was just like, yeah, I'm seeing someone, and you know, first thing I said, I was being honest, I was like, she's not Tamil. And then they gave like a strange look, and I'm like, you know, she's Gujarati, she's Indian. Gave her the whole spiel on how like she's a great person, how I met her. They basically shut down, and they were just like
silent.
Yeah, they were like basically just kind of, it was like radio silence, and they were just like, well, you know, we don't really approve because we don't really know them, we don't really know who their family is, so it's really hard for us to kind of say anything now. And like I find that really strange. I was like, if I was in their shoes, I just would want to know more about you,
the person.
How, like, instead of me like trying to tell you, I'd be asking like a million questions. Like I'd be like really interested, like tell me, okay. Yeah, it's so weird how you could just make a decision based on this person's ethnicity or like culture without even knowing anything about them. Like that I will never understand. But like I said, your parents grew up differently. So yeah, that was kind of how I told them. That's how the first conversation went. Once I had gotten that out of the way, it was a lot easier for me to have follow-up conversations and start talking you up, start talking about your family, and then just kind of easing it in. So yeah, pretty much that was how it went down, my first encounter. It was really, really awkward. We'll get more into the details of like what my parents' concerns were, how I addressed them, and how I got them to get more reassured on like this whole relationship.
Yeah, after I tell my side of the story, so I'll just give you guys like my spiel of how it went down for me, and then we'll get into the concerns and stuff. So growing up, I was like never really close with my parents too much. I'm the middle child, so I always kind of felt like a black sheep, and I've always been told by my parents like, you need to bring home a Gujarati guy. Like this is like something I've been told like since I was like pretty young. I would say like high school to like early university and stuff like that. And I think my parents always kind of had an inkling that I was never going to bring home a Gujarati guy. And I, like Vikra, knew at an early age that I was never really going to bring home a Gujarati guy. Yeah, I knew it was a battle I was always going to have to fight. So like Vikra, I never grew up around any Gujarati people. I mainly grew up around Punjabi people. So in my mind, I was always going to marry a Punjabi guy just because like that's what I grew up around and that's all I kind of knew. And I had talked to Gujarati guys, but like they just weren't really my type, especially because I never really grew up around them. In and around the time that I was going to tell my parents, I was really, really stressing out. I was facing a lot of health issues and I was super anxious and super depressed at the time too. So I was like extra scared to tell them. I had been talking to my sister about telling them for a little bit, and one time me and my sister went out for coffee and I basically just told her everything I was feeling. Like I felt like I was always such a disappointment. Even growing up, like a lot of the things that my parents wanted me to do, like I never really did. I would always just go and do my own thing. So I've always felt like a disappointment, or I've always felt like I was going against the grain. And this was another thing that I knew I was going against the grain for. And this one was really, really tough compared to everything else, because everything else was kind of like, this is something I'm doing for me, and it's a decision that ultimately only really affects me. But who I marry does affect my family. Like it does affect my relationship with them, because I'm bringing this person into my family. So that's what made this whole thing extra hard for me. I'm usually just okay with like going against what my parents say, because it doesn't really affect them at the end of the day, but this was actually going to affect them. And I didn't want to ruin my relationship with them, and I was really scared that it was just like going to tear our family apart. And the way my dad kind of reacts to things is like, if he's mad at me, he's not just mad at me, he's like kind of mad at everyone. So everyone in the house feels it, and it's really hard to deal with, because like he'll just kind of stop talking to everyone, and I feel bad because I'm like, okay, if you're mad at me, be mad at me, that's fine, like I can take it because this is my problem. But like it makes me feel so guilty that like he won't talk to my mom properly, or he won't talk to my sister properly, and it was just a feeling of guilt. So I was really, really dreading this. And my sister could see this. Like when we went out for coffee, I was like super anxious, like my hands were shaking whenever I was talking to her. I was like almost in tears. And my sister was like, this is my older sister, by the way. So my older sister Rupal was like, okay, you know what, don't worry, I'll tell them. And I was like, oh my God, thank God. Like I was like, just like how he said, I was like cringing at the fact that I had to like even say those words to my parents. And to me too, it was really hard, because I've never brought a guy around my house, like ever. Like I've never talked about a guy, I've never brought a guy around as a friend.
Isn't that so strange?
Like
the
nothing.
First conversation you're gonna have about
a guy is like, this is the guy I'm gonna marry. Like it was, oh, like I can't even begin to describe how like cringe I felt inside, like how much I just like wanted to like blah. Oh, this is another thing. When my sister got married to her husband, like she had a lot of problems with my parents, and I'm not really going to go into detail about that because that's not really my story to tell. But I will say that he was Gujarati and she still had problems. So I just thought this was going to be like even worse, because if she had problems and she brought him a Gujarati guy, like what was my
chances.
Like, yeah. Anyways, my sister took them out for like dinner or something along those lines, and then told them. And one thing my sister did mention while she was like talking to them was like, you know, like Hemily's going through a lot of issues right now. Like, she's having a lot of health problems. Like, she's just going through a lot. So the way you handle this needs to be very carefully, because she's already so stressed out. And she doesn't really need you guys like adding on to everything that's already going on in her life. She brought up how my parents had made her feel when she brought home her husband. And I think my parents felt kind of guilty about that whole situation. That whole way of going about it made it much easier for me, I would say. But it was still very awkward. So after that, I'm pretty sure I was like in Mexico for work when my sister had this conversation with them, and then I got—
You weren't even in the country?
Yeah, I don't even think I was in the country. Basically, I think my sister told my parents while I was in Mexico, and then I came back for a day pretty much, a day or maybe like a day and a half or something like that, and then I left again for Mexico for work again. So like I had like 2 Mexico trips within like the span of a week of each other. And basically my sister had told them that I came back, like no one was really talking to me, and then my dad was driving me to the airport, and it was just like this really awkward, like quiet drive, and I was like, so did you like talk to Rupal about things? And my dad was like, yeah. And he was like, you know, I don't really know. And then I was like, and then I started like telling him about Vikra and like how great he is and everything he does. And my dad was just like, okay, like don't stress about this right now. You just go do your work and focus on that, and we'll talk about this when you get home. And I was like, I don't know if that was a relief or if that was more stressful for me, because I was like, okay, I'm glad I don't have to talk about it now, and like this is just really awkward and I just want this all to end. But then I was also like, fuck, I'm gonna be thinking about this the entire time I'm in Mexico and working, and I just like, I know I'm gonna go and just like not want to come back. So yeah, like it was bittersweet in that sense. I left for Mexico, I came back, and then my parents kind of just got into all their concerns. Like we started talking about it, and I remember sitting at the fireplace, my dad was sitting on the couch, and he was just like, yeah, like he just started addressing all his concerns. So I think we're gonna get into what concerns our parents had, because they're pretty similar to each other, so we didn't want to repeat each other. So yeah, the first one was, what will people think? So how did you address that concern?
That one's really tough. You can't really address that with like a solution for them.
Yeah.
People are gonna think what they think. It's just a matter of like
ignoring them.
Yeah, just accepting that the situation is what it is. Mm-hmm. And you know, if you care to tell people or clarify with people, it's just, you know, it's my kid's life, this is what they want to do. And eventually that's kind of the path my parents, my dad especially, took. So that was a little bit difficult. I didn't really have an answer other than, hey, like, I don't really care what other people think.
Yeah.
Like, this is my life, and their thoughts or their opinions is not going to make my life any better now, today, tomorrow, in the future. So it has no bearing on me, so I don't really care. Yeah. I made that very, very clear.
For me, so I kind of played the blame game a little bit. My family, my immediate family has brought home like different cultures. So like my cousin is dating like a Punjabi guy, and there's like, and their cousin's
I am the first one to take the big leap.
Yeah, so it was pretty difficult, I think, for him in that sense. For me, I got to play the blame game. Like I had cousins who have married outside of our culture. I've had aunts who've married like white guys and like all this good stuff. So I could play the blame game. And you're so concerned about what other people will think, but like all these people that have married outside, like you're cool with them and other people are cool with them, so why are you so concerned about what other people think?
They've accepted it, so why wouldn't they accept it?
Yeah, like why wouldn't other people accept what I'm going through kind of thing, right? So that's kind of how I addressed the what will people think. And then also I kind of went about it like how Vikra did, where I was like, who cares what they think? Like, and if you are so concerned with, or if these people are talking shit about you or whatever, like, why are you associating yourself with them? Like, these are not people that you should be associating yourself with, because they're only gonna bring you down. Like, if they truly cared about you, like, they wouldn't be talking shit about you. Okay, this one was like a serious one between both of our families, and I thought this one was so annoying, but they were so concerned with asking other people if our families were good, like if we came from good families, and like what our families were like, and to determine who we were as people.
That's so... Which
was so weird to us. And I guess that's how they kind of do it back home.
Yeah.
But like, to us, that made literally no sense, because I was like, you could come from a bad family and be a really good person, or vice versa.
I think it goes back to the fact that, like, especially with my parents, they don't have, I don't know, lack of better term, the requisite, like, social skills to be able to talk to you and figure out if you're, like, a good human being. So they need to, like, go ask other people who know you well, I guess, or other families. Or know
our families well.
Yeah, because they won't take your word or believe you. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe they just don't know if they can believe or trust our opinion, or trust the image you portray to them. Yeah. Right? Maybe it's not the whole, that thing, the social skills thing. Maybe it's just, they just don't trust
maybe it's just like a bit of everything.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know.
But it was like, that was a really, like, that was a really tough one, because I was just kind of like, dude, you have to like trust us. And I find this really annoying with brown parents, and I think this is a lot of brown parents, where they don't trust their own kids. Like, they will look to other people's opinions to see if their kids are making a good decision. Yeah, for like validation. And it's just like, you're like, okay, this is how I went about this problem. I was like, you raised us, like, you have to have some type of trust in yourself to know that I'm smart enough to bring home someone that's good for me. Like, I'm not stupid. Like, I'm not trying to like fuck up my life. Like, I feel like you put a really strong head on my shoulders, so you need to trust that I am good to make good decisions. And also, like, I've never really done anything that's like super fucked up for you to think that like my judgment's really off. So the guy that I bring home, you can't think that I like have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I obviously know my family values. I know like my morals. Like, I know what I'm looking for, and I wouldn't go around trying to find someone that's just like a bum.
No, I get their reservations. Like, I'm sure they hear like a lot of horror stories about like couples and divorce, and I get all that, but it's like, what I don't understand is how you don't trust your own instincts to talk to someone, get to know someone, make your own informed decision on that person based on your conversation, to be like, hey, this person is a good person, or someone suitable for my daughter.
I mean, like, even with the whole divorce thing, so like my mom kind of brought that up too, and I was just like she's like, you don't know their family and you don't know what troubles they'll give you later. And I'm like, yeah, that's true, but I think that's true for anyone that you meet, because like there's so many Indian people or Sri Lankan people, brown people in general, that have gotten married, are in unhappy marriages, and they just deal with it because they don't want to like divorce or whatever, because like, again, what will people think, or whatever the case is, right?
And there's a lot that do end up in divorce too.
Yeah, so it's a chance you're gonna take regardless. Like, you can't say that about someone just based off of their culture, just based off of the fact that like they're from a different culture. Like, it could just equally not as work out if I had married a Gujarati guy or brought home a Gujarati guy. So I'm like, you can't really say that.
It goes back to the whole thing where it's like, I think they're really like, they care so much about getting along with your family, and they see the language and the culture as a barrier, instead of focusing on like, is this good for my kid? Is this person good for my kid? Are they gonna have a happy marriage? And so like, that is probably where the big disconnect is between us and the parents. But
for them, that's like another really big concern. It's like, well, how will our families get along? And I'm like, for me, this is how I address the concern. I assume you addressed it similarly. It was like, dude, like, you're only gonna see each other like a couple times a year. Like, I'm going to be living with this person for the rest of my life. Like, I have to wake up and see this person's face every single day. So I'm sorry, but I don't really care if you like aren't best friends with his like family. Like I think all you really need to do at that point is get along and be civil with each other and be good to each other. And both families are good families. Like I know his family's a good family. Like I know I come from a good family. So I don't see why you can't get along in that sense.
They don't know that, but
yeah.
But like that's where.
But like you have to take a chance, right? Like you need to be able, and that was one thing we told our parents, like you need to be able to talk to them first for you to even make that judgment. You can't like make this judgment without knowing the other person and their family. And like you can't just ask around to other people to see what that family is like. Like that's like people can have skewed opinions about that person. Like I could be good to you and then not good to the next person. So one person can say that I'm a really good person and the next person can say I'm an asshole. So you can't really take the judgment off of other people solely. You have to meet that person yourself and their family yourself in order to make your final decision.
And I like the way how we kind of did it. It wasn't like the parents met right away. It was like I met her parents, got to know them on a few on a few instances.
Like separate meetings.
Separate. And then like Hamali met my parents, we went for dinner, she came over. They got to know her first, then the parents met. So you already have an idea of who the person is.
Yeah.
And that kind of made it a lot easier instead of like I know in other like other folks that I know, like their parents kind of meet right away, and it's like you don't get to know the people, and it's just kind of
you don't get to know the actual individual that you're like marrying, or like that your kid is marrying, I guess. So it was nice that we met individually. So another concern that my parents came up with was like, what's it going to be like for our kids? Like what language are they going to speak? What culture are they going to follow? Like they're going to be confused. So yeah, I'll let you kind of answer that one first.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of raising our kids, like it's not like they're going to be raised solely in Gujarati or in Tamil. Like they're going to be raised speaking English. That's our predominant language. But like I just assured them that like the values of our family and like the customs that we practice in our family, like me growing up, I'll make sure I pass that along, and I'll make sure that you guys have an opportunity to pass along like what your parents taught you, the language, all that kind of stuff to them, so it's not going to be lost. And obviously the fear is there is like naturally it will be because the kids like split between both, but you just got to reassure them that's going to happen. And
for me too, I was like, to be honest, like I'm not very assimilated into my culture. I don't know a lot about being Gujarati. I can speak it, but in terms of like the actual culture, like I just like do as my parents like tell me to do. I'm not like, I won't go and do these cultural things on my own. I don't really know them. So that's what I told my mom and my parents. I was just kind of like, regardless if I had married a Gujarati guy, I don't think we would have really passed on those traditions the way you guys do it now with us, because it's not really how we grew up.
It's not really like wildly different culture. It's very lot of overlap.
And like our religions are the same. We're both Hindu.
Both Hindu, so, and like they're gonna get the best of both worlds is the way I looked at it and pitched it to my parents.
So this was a concern that my parents had, I think for me specifically. When you're brown, marriage for a girl is like very different. Like the topic of marriage for a girl is very different than it is for a guy. And I think the concern that my parents had was like, the way they look at it is when your daughter gets married, you're basically like giving her away. You're giving her away, and now she is now not part of your family, she is a part of their family. So they were very concerned about what family I was going into, because they obviously want their daughter to be treated right and like with love, and they just didn't want me to be hurt in any way. And again, that was more of like me being like, you need to meet this family first before you can even say they're not going to treat me right, because you have no idea who they are. And again, it was really about bringing them in front of each other, in front of him, in front of his parents, and getting them to talk, for them to make that final judgment. And that's kind of what I said to them. I was like, you need to understand who they are as people, and not base everything off of like stereotypes of what you've heard of their culture. And that was another concern I think both of our families had, was like, these stereotypes that you just hear of like what Indian people are like or what Sri Lankan people are like, and there's not always the best stereotypes out there. So it was really us telling our parents, like, you need to meet them before you can even judge them, because they're not like these typical stereotypes that you hear about all the time. Also, like, our families not being able to communicate with each other, that was a big concern. Like, they were like, oh, we won't be able to speak in Tamil, or they won't be able to speak in Gujarati. And like, we totally understand that there is a language barrier there, and like, English is not their first language for both of them. So we understood that, but again, it came back to like, you guys both speak English, like you can somewhat communicate to each other. It's not like you're not going to be able to talk to each other at all. And again, it's like, you're only going to be seeing each other like a couple times a year. Like, you don't need to be having long conversations with them and like being buddy buddy. Yeah, you just need to be able to
understand who they are as people.
Exactly. So that was another thing. And honestly, when they met each other, they like hit it off. Like, my dad loves your dad. Like, loves your dad. So
it's just ironic how everything turned out. Yeah. It's like my perception of how like they would interact was completely different.
Yeah. But yeah, that was our parents' main concerns. And now we're just kind of gonna give you guys advice on how to approach the situation, of what we think is best, and like best practices, and what we think you should keep in mind when going into telling your parents about each other, if you're from different backgrounds, or even just telling your parents about each other if that's something you're scared about.
So from a guy's perspective, in terms of advice that I can give is, I think it's kind of universal. They like their parents want to make sure that you're going to take care of their daughter, right? So essentially, they want to make sure that you're a person who has their shit together, right? When that comes to like, what are you doing with your life? Do you have a job? Will you take care of my daughter?
Are you financially stable?
Are you financially stable? Like, do you have like the right morals? Yeah, right intentions, all of that good stuff, right? So like, even when I met her dad, like, I knew a list of questions that he's probably going to ask me along the lines of what we just said. So just having those questions ready and prepared just makes you look like you're ready to do this.
Yeah, like, we waited before we knew we were actually ready to get married to introduce each other to our parents. So like, career-wise, we were like set, not like set, but like, we had most of our shit together and we were on the right path. Like, we had been saving, so we were financially stable. Like, we had also worked out our own kinks. Like, I think we knew like emotionally we were right for each other. We had gone through like problems together, and so we both knew too that like, through thick and thin, like, we are going to be there for each other. So we were ready for the battle together.
It's not to say that you need to have X, Y, Z things in your life in order for you to be ready to go and do this and like talk to their parents and work this whole out. But you have to show that like, your life is on the path to get X, Y, Z things. Yeah. If you can demonstrate that, then you're good, right? But if you don't know what's going on in your own life, and you're kind of
just like kind of going in willy-nilly, being like, yeah, things will work out. Like, that's not what our parents want to hear. I think one big piece of advice that we can really give is actually getting that person in front of your parents. So like, your significant other, like, you need to get them in front of your parents so your parents can actually judge them. So one thing I did tell my parents was like, you know what, like, I know you have all these concerns, but I need you to meet him first before you say all these things, because I can see where you're coming from, and I can see why you're scared, because this is such a new thing to you. Like, this is like unknown territory, and that can be very scary, especially when you've been in a bubble your whole life, because it's not scary to us. Like, we lived in a diverse world, right? Whereas they didn't. So yeah, this is very, very scary to them. So yeah, getting them in front of like,
the longer you wait, the longer you wait, the more they start
like making up stories in their head.
About who you are, or they'll try to go find out through other families about you.
And it's just like,
and they start creating this mental image that is completely wrong. Sooner you get
like,
they'll
like, sometimes, because especially you're from different cultures, like, they don't even find families that know each other, like, know them or whatever. So they'll just start basing it off of what other people say about this person's culture. Yeah. And it's like, so not true, especially like the things that they say about Sri Lankan people. I'm like, this is so opposite of what Vikra's like, and I think vice versa of like what I'm like and what they say about Indian people. So I think really getting them in front of like your parents, like getting your significant other in front of your parents, and also getting your significant other's parents in front of their parents. So like getting the parents to meet is really important too, before your parents kind of have a final say in what they feel about the other person, because I think that really helps change their perspective when they realize.
We didn't wait too long. I felt like
no,
you
know what, our parents actually
quick.
like kind of came around pretty quick to like wanting to meet the other person, and I kept saying it to my parents. I'm like, you can't be making decisions unless you meet them. Like, I won't take any of your opinions seriously unless you meet them, because you have no idea who they are, and I do, and I genuinely know that they're good people. So yeah, so I think after about like a couple weeks, like I had met his parents and vice versa, he had met my parents, and then we met like a few times, and then like maybe like 2.5 months in, maybe our parents met each other. So like it was really quick.
But in that time, like you were coming over a lot, and you were like really getting to know them.
Yeah, and then I had a lot of like family things, and like Vicar would be coming to that a lot. So yeah, they got to know each other pretty well before our parents met, and then our parents met pretty like quickly too. And as soon as our parents met, like they were like, oh, okay, this is fine, they're good people. So it's really important to get them in front of each other. Being patient is super important, because like you have to realize we come from a very, very different world from our parents, and they were very sheltered, whereas we're not. Like, we have technology to like understand what's going on in the world. We like grew up in a very diverse like community, whereas they didn't. Like, they grew up around only people that were just like them, and they didn't grow up around technology, so they only heard what they heard on the news or TV
they grew up
or
with
whatever.
The same mentality. Everybody thought just like them.
Yeah, just like them. So there was no one to really challenge what they were saying or doing or thinking. Like, we are the first people to really challenge them. So you have to understand that it's hard to change old habits and think in new ways, and your parents are trying their best. So you got to be patient with them, because it does take some time.
There's no reason for them to not believe. Like, if they believe that they're one of the good people within their culture, there's no reason to believe why there's no other people just like you in other cultures, and your daughter or a son has met those people, and that's who they're trying to join together.
And always keep in mind that your parents just want the best for you. Like, I know it's really, really hard, because like it was tough talking to my parents, and I had to bite my tongue a lot, because I'm like, oh my God, like you're just talking so much shit. Like, you don't really know. And it's like, I had to remind myself, like, my parents are saying this out of love. Like, they want the best for me. There was times where we like fought, and like I cried, and there was like arguments and stuff like that in there. But ultimately, like, I knew that my parents just wanted me to be okay, especially because it's such a big decision in my life. So yeah, you just kind of have to like slowly remind yourself that too, and be grateful that that's what they want for you, and that's the reason they're saying this. Because when you think of it that way, it makes the process easier for you to be patient with. And then finally, really having open communication. So really addressing their concerns and explaining to them why we're making this decision, and why we're capable of making this decision, and why their concerns aren't really concerns, and kind of just like showing them a new world, and really explaining to them this is kind of how things work now. And yeah, like just really hearing their story out, and then addressing it so that they understand you're not just making a stupid decision, and addressing why your decision is right and why it works.
So I just want to say good luck, because I know parents can be extremely, extremely stubborn, and even though it might not seem like they see where you're coming from, and you just got to remember that you got to be firm, man. If like you found the person that you want to be with, you need to make sure that you're not going to waver. You're going to be like very, very strong on your stance on being with them, and that needs to show through. Like, my parents could see in my eyes and in my like body language and everything of how I approach the situation that they were not going to change my mind. They were not going to convince me, and it was just a matter of them just telling me their concerns, and we were going to like move along with this.
Yeah, yeah. I think sometimes that's what they want to see too. That like you're actually like resilient about this, and that
yeah. Oh, they are trying to test you. Are you crazy? My dad, the first like on the couple conversations after the first time I told him, 100%, he's just trying to test me to see is this guy serious? Can I actually convince him or persuade him not to? 100%.
Stand your ground. And if you know this is what's best for you, like you need to do what's best for you, because at the end of the day, you are going to be waking up to this person every single day. Like this is a person you are going to be building your life with, having kids with. Like this is your forever. So if you're not happy with your forever, do not go through with it. It is just so not worth it. You do not want to be on your deathbed looking back at your life and being like, I wish I had just married the person I wanted to, because like knock on wood, but your parents aren't going to be around forever, you know? So you can't be like doing everything to satisfy them. Like they're not going to be living your life. And especially once you're married, like they're not really going to be around. So you're the one that's going to have to deal with the shit that the person that you married gives you.
It's either you deal with a little bit of short-term shit with your parents on getting them aboard, or you don't get to live with the person you want to, and you live with the lifelong of shit,
a burden
that you don't want in your life,
and just being miserable. And it's like you pick your poison kind of thing. And ultimately, like your parents will come around, and they love you. Like they just want the best for you, so they will come around. And I've heard time and time again like the story and how the parents always come around. So
good luck.
Good luck, guys.
Let us know how it goes in the comments below.
We would love to know if this video is helpful to you, if you feel like you could relate to it, all that good stuff. But yeah, ultimately, we just want to wish you the best of luck, and we hope that this video made you feel not so alone in the situation, because we all go through it. And yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any other topics that you want the both of us to cover, please leave them in the comments below. And if you did like this video, please do not forget to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe down below. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.
Peace.